The following half-hour show is a paid political program and is not endorsed by this station, management, or staff.
The following program is sponsored by Excalibur Insurance Management Services.
Hi, and welcome to the Volpe Report. I'm Jane Adonisio, and I know you're used to seeing Chuck Volpe at this time, and you will see Chuck in just a little bit because he's hosting his annual Christmas party right here in New York City. We are at the New York Hilton, and this party of Chuck's coincides with the Pennsylvania Society dinner. Now, Chuck's been holding his party for a very long time, 30 years. The Pennsylvania Society dinner, well, a little bit longer, 1899. I am working with Chuck tonight, and you'll see a lot of familiar faces on the show. For me, this isn't work, this is pleasure, and we hope you enjoy this very special Christmas edition of the Volpe Report.
This is the Volpe Report, a weekly news and political interview show examining the latest local, state, and national issues with Chuck Volpe. Insightful, informative, controversial, the area's premier political talk show, the Volpe Report.
Rich, welcome to the Volpe Report.
It's good to be back.
And regrettably, I'd love to talk to you so much more. You're out of our media market, which takes in northeast and central Pennsylvania. We go as far west as Williamsport. But I'm also fortunate enough to every Christmas at my Christmas party have you be as a good friend and a longtime supporter of mine, and me of you, that you come to my party and you get to be on my show at least once a year for our Christmas special, and you are again. So let me say, first of all, that I want to go on record that as you are coming to the end of your third 4-year term as the Allegheny County Executive, and as I learned just a moment ago, I said you're the third most powerful Democrat in Pennsylvania. The governor first, the mayor of Philadelphia second, and the county executive of Allegheny third. And you pointed it out to me, you just had more votes voted this election cycle than Philly did, which means you're the second most powerful Democrat in Pennsylvania. So well, congratulations.
I don't know about that, but we did outvote them. It was an amazing thing. The turnout in Allegheny County continues to go up with the mail-in ballots and all the things that are happening. But Chuck, it's great to be back. I mean, after the 2-year hiatus, I love coming to your gathering every year, and you see people, friends. We're from the Southwest. You from the Southwest too, even though you're from the Northeast.
Dual residency.
We claim you. We claim you once in a while too. Yeah, you're a Pirates fan and a Steeler fan and a Penguins fan as well as the other side. But I think there's a lot of commonalities between, Lackawanna County and Allegheny County.
There is.
And Southwest, I'll call it all of Southwestern Pennsylvania, quite frankly. And what we're doing now is both communities coming back from really what was economic devastation of a couple of decades ago, when our factories and our mines closed, and now it's new technology, it's a new economy, and I think it's incumbent upon all of us to work together, Democrats and Republicans, even though sometimes we can be divided in Harrisburg or Washington, but the people that make things go are the ones that work together.
There's no question, Rich, and I have to tell my audience they already know this, because I've been on shows this fall predicting a red wave, and I was wrong. And I had to take my comeuppance. So a good friend of mine, one of the top Democratic strategists in the country from the firm Purple Strategies in Washington, I asked him on. He had come on earlier in the fall, and I had a Republican strategist on, and we were kind of both tag teaming about what a beating and shellacking the Democrats were going to take. And when it didn't happen, of course, in Pennsylvania, or around the country for that matter, I had to eat my humble pie. I had him come back on to take a victory lap, which he did. And he would be proud of me because last week's show, I had the next Speaker of the House of Representatives, Democrat Joanna McClinton from Center City, Philadelphia, where her district is. So we keep our show balanced. But you have always been a friend of the show. And whatever I've done, politically or otherwise, you've always been a counselor for me and a confidant. And what you have done again in Southwest, we are still aspiring in the Northeast. Since Cole left a long time ago, we're still trying to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. Well, when Steele left the southwestern part of the state many, many years ago, you've already done it. So talk to us like how you guys did it. There was Renaissance 1, Renaissance 2, and you are Renaissance 3. I don't know if anybody's officially proclaimed that. You are Renaissance 3, but go ahead.
Well, what we've really done is reached out for our assets and played on our assets. Marcellus Shale, when that came around in 2007, 2008, was a game changer. So we have a Shell Petrochemical, an $8 billion investment of wealth from overseas into southwestern Pennsylvania. We utilize Carnegie Mellon and the University of Pittsburgh, two great institutions that are commercializing a lot of the research and development they're doing in robotics, life sciences, artificial intelligence, eds and meds, so to speak. We now have 140 robotics companies in about an 8-block area in Lawrenceville and the Strip District, and they continue to grow. We're growing with young people, growing with technology. It's the next generation. It's almost like Pittsburgh did 130, 140 years ago when steel was the new technology in the late 1800s. So it's a new day, and we want to reach out with our assets. Back to the political thing, I do want to comment on that because I think both parties can learn a lesson from what we thought might be a red wave. And when the Republican Party maybe goes too far, and I think that the Dobbs decision certainly had a lot of impact on that, and maybe some other things around elections.
Extremist Trump-appointed candidates had something to do as well.
And if our party, meaning my Democratic Party, goes too far on things like defunding police or the Green New Deal, things like that, we will be. I think the fact that Washington, with a very limited majority, did things like infrastructure, prescription drugs, reducing, carbon footprint without eliminating all the things that certain people would want to do. I think it's a lesson that we all learn is you want to govern from the middle. And I think the voters will respond to that in either party.
That's where they are. We're a country that goes from being a little right of center to being a little left of center. I've told people, Rich, from my whole lifetime, up until recently, the last couple of years, the parties in this country, I like to use football analogies like you, I'm a big fan. We're between the 40s, a little to the left of midfield, a little bit, but kind of in the logo of midfield, both parties. And now we're inside the 10s both ways.
Right.
And it's going to be leaders like you and others around this country and around this state that are going to have to drag both parties because the voters are speaking loud and clear. When they thought there was going to be a Democratic tsunami in 2020, granted, President Biden did win, but in Pennsylvania, we got a Republican Auditor General, we got a Republican Pennsylvania Treasurer. Exactly right. So again, the voters were telling the Democrats, no, don't talk about defunding the police or Green New Deals. So your point's well taken.
No, and I think what as Pennsylvanians, we are pragmatic people. We like to solve problems, meet challenges. If those challenges are in public safety, let's do it in a reasonable way. If the problems are in jobs, let's do it in a reasonable way. Education, whatever it might be. I think we want practical people to come to practical solutions, public and private working together. Our universities are part of it, our philanthropic community's part of it, but really you got to bring everybody to the table and work together. And like families do or businesses do, that's how we get things done.
Well done. Sounds like you should be a candidate for high statewide office very soon. Well, Rich, happy holidays, you and your family, and I value our friendship, and thank you for all you've taught me for 12 years.
Keep up the good work. Thanks,
Thank
Chuck.
you, Rich.
Take care.
John, welcome to the Volpe Report.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Very
Pleasure.
nice to be here.
We are here today with John Seises, a key player in the energy industry in Pennsylvania, which means he's a key player in the political industry in Pennsylvania. And of course, this is a political talk show. So, John, thank you, first of all. This is, since you're a first-time guest, this is we mentioned I talked off camera, this is our 30th annual one of these. So let me start with, talk about the importance in energy, which is what you are. You're a leader in that industry. The importance of energy and a little bit about your firm and what it does.
Sure. Chuck, thanks first of all for having me here. It's a pleasure. It's my first time at the Pennsylvania Society. I'm a distributor of industrial lubricants. All of them, I would say 80% of my lubricants are petroleum-based. I started my career here in Western PA, working for an oil additive manufacturer.
Right.
And there's nothing more important, obviously, to the United States than the oil industry here, and Pennsylvania is known for having the best crude oil,
Right.
Almost globally, neatest, least refining
Right.
crude to produce lubricants and oil-based products.
And John, we have found out ever since the Green New Deal initiatives affected really the Democratic Party, one of the reasons I left it. They talk about the importance of energy, not just in Pennsylvania, but in the geopolitical balance of power around the world.
Right. I mean, right now we see, oil prices going through the roof, policies really working against our own country and not really helping other countries, exporting the majority of what we produce here, and it's causing problems all over the world, not really helping us here at home. The policies are just going against what we need for the United States to thrive. So, we really need new policies, new ideas. We need to get back to where we were just a handful of years ago when we were energy independent and producing our own oil and a net exporter of what we produce. Now we're exporting what we call our strategic reserves, and it's insane. I mean, where 80% of those strategic reserves have actually been exported to China, of all places, and it's obviously not helping us here at home. So,
no doubt. A couple short weeks ago, I had on this show former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who, by the way, has started an exploratory committee to consider running for president of the United States. He was telling horror stories, John, of Russian tankers with Russian oil rolling up United States interstates because places like New York won't allow any drilling and shut down all Marcellus. They won't allow anything. They're importing Russian oil here in the United States.
Yeah.
It's a catastrophe.
Well, I mean, look, we're looking to import oil from Venezuela, right? From OPEC countries, and
then they're thumbing their nose at us.
And they're laughing at us. They're laughing at where we were just again a short time ago, and it's a shame. I mean, we need better ideas, new policies, and we need to think a little bit more internally as opposed to externally.
Well, before I let you go, we have a lot of Villanova fans in our audience, and as they can probably tell, I topped out at about 5'8", which means my career ended in high school basketball. But they see the difference with a Division I athlete, basketball player at Villanova, and a kid that ended his career at Bishop Hannon High School.
Well,
congratulations. That's a great and proud tradition. Just recently won 2 national championships.
No question. And it was a privilege for me to play with Villanova and be a part of that. I still, one of the life-changing moments in my life. Obviously, it's something to look back on. Villanova's it's a great institution. I think everybody was sorry to see Jay retire.
You had to be.
But, all things need new starts at some point, just like we do here, and hopefully we'll get back on the right track.
Well, John, thank you for your time.
My pleasure, Chuck.
Enjoy your Christmas time, and please enjoy the rest of our party. I always miss my own party, by the way, but thank you for your time.
You're doing an important thing for everybody in Pennsylvania, so thanks very much.
John Seisis, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we're here now with guests at every single Christmas show in New York City. I'm proud to have 2 of my close friends, and they do this interview, and I'm happy to have them back. But there's a little different twist to this year, because in one case, Mr. Ed Cristiano, who is the president of our insurance company's board of directors and my close friend, something changed since, well, it's now 3 years, remember, since we were here, because 2 years we were shut down in the pandemic. But in addition to being the executive director of the Northumberland County Housing Authority, in addition to being president of the Harry Housing and Redevelopment Insurance Exchange Insurance Company Board of Directors, he's now been appointed recently to the very prestigious PHFA Board of Directors, very important for housing in Pennsylvania, connected to the state government. Came on the recommendation of his good friend, who was a leader, you remember, Kurt Masser, in the Republican House of Representatives of Pennsylvania. But before he talked to Eddie about his PHFA experience and his party, will now point out that Kurt has also had a change in the 3 years since we've come back. Back then, and you know he's on my show many times, as a leader of the Republican caucus in the House, he has retired from the House, and as of November 30th, just a few days ago, he became a private citizen. So we're going to hear his take on that. But first, you, Eddie. Talk a little bit about this party. You've been coming to it, God, for what, 20 years or so at least. And as my audience knows, this is our 30th party with the 2-year hiatus we had. But talk a little bit about the weekend, and then we'll talk next about PHF.
Well, and as you know, Chuck, it's always been an honor to come here. It's my favorite time of year. You know, around Christmas in New York City, the Volpe family, the Volpe Report, what you do for our area, the people that listen to you, you know, our political views, your take, and you have evolved over the years, both politically and the show has done it at the same time. But as far as sitting on a board, again,
talk about PHFA.
It was Representative Mosser's recommendation. It was something I wanted to sit on for a number of years, being in the housing industry. And through his leadership in you know, Representative Benninghoff, who's the Republican leader of the House at the time, appointed me to sit on a board. And now it's been over a year and a half since I've been appointed, and I enjoy it tremendously.
Well, tell people in our audience, most I'm sure don't even know what the PHFA does or is, so talk about it.
Yeah, PHFA is a housing industry. They deal with housing, they do with home ownership, rental assistance, they do the low-income housing tax credit program, where we're building affordable housing throughout the Commonwealth, and it's what the industry is right now.
Kurt. First of all, as my audience knows, and I'm sure remembers you ascended to a major leadership position in the House. You were the caucus administrator for the Republican Party. Great influence, important to the caucus, as well as the legislation you can get done. So, and now you have, remember, normally we would have been talking about this leading up. It's 3 years since this party's been back because of the COVID took it out the last 2 years. And it's been a while since I had you on my show. The last time, of course, we were talking hard policy issues and politics. You're now a private citizen for a few days. Talk about that and your future plans.
Well, thank you. First of all, Chuck, thank you so much, and thank you to the Volpe family for having us up here. Always enjoy this time of year. Always enjoy coming to the city. Enjoy your hospitality here. You know, it's been 12 years I was in the House, and I spent a number of those years in leadership and enjoyed it. It's about building relationships in the House, right? And it's a pretty simple thing when you get down to brass tacks. It's just build relationships. I was able to do that, and we were successful doing that. But they say, you know, it's time. Well, you know when it's time, and I knew it was time. It's just time to move on, time to let some fresh voices in there. And
how refreshing to hear that. You know, the debate about term limits rages on and on and on. In fact, there was even some discussion in Pennsylvania of doing it, but you've imposed your own. And one of the greatest speeches I ever heard was your impassioned speech on the floor of Pennsylvania's House of Representatives when our soon-to-be former governor, Tom Wolf, completely and illegally shut down Pennsylvania during the shutdown when COVID first hit in March of 2020 and gave everybody about 48 hours notice that he was shutting down the state. And you went up on the floor and for several minutes gave one of the most eloquent, impassioned speeches. So now we can kind of see the genesis of what you mean about your business was affected, like a lot of small business owners across this state. You were their voice. It will be sorely missed. And I have to also say and make this comment, there goes the neighborhood, because since you announced your retirement, the House just went Democrat by one vote.
But it wasn't my seat. It wasn't my seat. My seat stayed in Republican hands.
Very true. It was your leadership they missed.
I'm hoping that might be the case, but they got some fine leaders there, yeah.
No doubt. Well, thank you guys both. Enjoy the party. I'll be in. I tell everybody that I miss most of my own party doing this, but we're very fortunate to have people, you know, the leaders around the state and from Washington, people need to hear about that affect their lives, and it's a fun time to do it. So, at any rate, thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Senator, welcome to the Christmas party version of the Volpe Report.
Thank you.
You have been, we're fortunate to say, a regular guest on the Volpe Report. Whenever we have big issues affecting Pennsylvania, we ask for your insight and your leadership. And you are in leadership. And your leadership was tested this past November 8th because unlike the Republican Senate, that you were the chairman of the Senate Republican Campaign Committee, successfully with a pretty strong majority staying Republican after the votes were counted, it was not so much the case in the House. That went for the first time in 12 years Democrat by one vote, it appears. So in fact, just this past week, I interviewed soon-to-be Speaker of the House, Joanna McClinton. She did the show with me a week ago. And so I guess my first question is, you're now strongly entrenched leadership majority in the Senate, the Republican Party. You've just gone through 8 years where you had the House and the Senate Republican with, for no other word, a governor that got probably the least things done of any governor in my lifetime. I do know he had the most vetoes, and he did that. I also know he made more history. Governor Tom Wolf was the first governor in history not to sign a budget in his first term. They all went into by operation of law. The colloquialism, he took his ball and went home with it, pretty much applies to what he did. Now, having said that, we have a governor coming in, elect, Josh Shapiro. And as we talked off camera, apparently he's saying the right things. He's talking about, like he literally extended olive branches. He understands that what Governor Wolf, or I was about to say didn't do for 8 years, he's not going to follow that road. He's talked about not putting Pennsylvania in Reggie. I know I've given you a lot to chew on, but talk about what the Senate's role will be, and more importantly, are we going to have progress, and do you think you're going to have a governor you can work with?
It's too soon to say. I was explaining this in Hazleton in my district the other day. You know, the voters voted for divided government. I don't think they voted for dysfunctional government, but it really could go either way. Tom Wolf did not want to work with us. He wanted to act as if he were the king of Pennsylvania rather than the governor. And so consequently, you saw the lack of results. Josh Shapiro now has a decision to make. Does he want to work with a House of Representatives, which, let's be honest, who knows who's really going to be controlling the House? At 102 to 101 on any given day, someone gets sick, someone gets mad, no one may really be in charge. We understand we've got a solid Republican edge in the Senate, and so I think the people in Luzerne County and Schuylkill County and Carbon County that I represent, they don't want us sitting there fighting every day. They would like to see us get stuff done, but it takes two to tango. I think the Senate is willing, at least on some issues, to work with the new governor, but he needs to be able to work with us. Right. Tom Wolf didn't want to do that. We'll see what Josh Shapiro wants.
Well, it was interesting you used that analogy to a kingship.
It's absolutely accurate.
Well, I did a lot of shows killing him on that. Well, when he gave 48-hour notice before shutting down Pennsylvania completely, and then carried on until literally, with his fingers clenched around the throne, had to be dragged off by a United States federal judge who declared what he did illegal and unconstitutional and stripped him of his authority. And you guys put on the ballot something the voters overwhelmingly voted for, which is to strip all future dictators after 21 days of power, in the sense they have to go back to the legislature for continued emergency powers. You've achieved a great deal, Dave, already in your term there. You were on the important appropriations when you were a member of the House of Representatives. You're going to be on important committees. I interviewed two of your good friends and my good friends, Ed Cristiano, who sits on the PHFA Board of Directors now, and former Republican leader in the House, caucus administrator, Representative Kurt Masser. I had referred to him as the king of blight, and they corrected me. They said, no, Chuck. The king of blight is Senator Dave Hart.
Hey, when you represent some of the old coal mining communities that I represent, it's not a choice. And we really have seen some of those communities begin to make a change for the better. We still have some work to do, but I think we've proven it can be done.
Well, we can use you in northeastern Pennsylvania. Senator, have a Merry Christmas. Thanks for stopping by.
All the best. Thank you.
Doyle, Merry Christmas. Welcome to the Volpe Christmas Show.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me here. It's awesome.
I was because unlike my other shows every week where I kind of introduce and give the background of my guests, we're going to do it kind of on the fly here. My audience obviously knows you're House member, Republican House member, Doyle Heffley. You represent in Carbon County as your district. And talk a little bit about the area you represent and, you know, what your issues are in representing them and what matters to them.
So it's the 122nd district. It's all of Carbon County. It's one of the few districts in the state house where the county line is actually a district line.
Wow.
So and it's an honor to represent it. I grew up there, lived there my whole life, and I think it's the most beautiful part of the state. Tourism is our number one industry in Carbon County. We have Jim Thorpe. We have 3 great ski resorts: Jack Frost, Big Boulder, Blue Mountain Ski Resort, and everybody's coming to Jim Thorpe and the Poconos right now to you know, vacation. So you know, tourism is a big industry. We also have a lot of opportunities in healthcare. Both St. Luke's and Lehigh Valley both built 2 world-class, state-of-the-art hospitals in Carbon County, and they're really expanding those services. Used to be years ago, if people needed medical care, they would have to travel to Lehigh Valley or maybe up to Scranton or Philadelphia, and now they can get those services right in the community. There's a lot of opportunities yet in Carbon County. We have some areas where we're dealing with blight. We have some other, you know, issues. We're still dealing with the coal refuse. We have a waste coal fire power plant. Right. But all in all, I mean, right now, I think Carbon County, I think we're doing pretty well in the way. There's always opportunities, but the people there are hardworking, blue-collar people. It's an honor to represent them. I share their values, and I think we have a great future there in Carbon County.
Well said. Thank you for stopping by. Enjoy the party. I have a tendency to miss my own party at these things, and but I'm going to get in there to hear some music myself. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Father Paul, thank you for stopping by the Volpe Report.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Merry Christmas, as it is the Christmas season in New York.
Merry Christmas, beautiful Advent, actually. We're still in the Advent season. We're waiting for Christmas.
Okay, thank you. You see, I skipped a few classes as a Roman Catholic. I missed a few catechism classes.
It's all good.
Father, I'm thrilled you can stop by and share a few minutes with us. I know because I spent most of my life traveling between Scranton and Pittsburgh and traversing the state. And I passed by the exit that says St. Vincent's College. And of course, like most people, I know St. Vincent College, obviously, because of your most famous inhabitant, at least during the late summer, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's right.
The place that the great Pittsburgh Steelers go for their summer training camp to get ready for their season.
55 training camps they've had with us.
Wow.
Every Super Bowl has started at St. Vincent's. That's right.
And that's always how I kind of thought of it. So before we get back to the Steelers, which I'd like to for a second,
all right.
I'd like to ask you, talk a little bit about St. Vincent's mission. You're the president, obviously, of St. Vincent's College, the highest executive position we have. So you're setting the tenor, you're setting the course and charting it, you're setting the policy. So talk about your goals and what St. Vincent's means to that region and to all of Pennsylvania.
So thank you. We're the first Benedictine college in the United States. And Benedictines cherish community, where people come together, are in a community, they belong to a community. For young people looking for colleges today, they're looking to belong somewhere. The only way they're going to succeed in science or history or business is when they feel like they can be connected to a place. So for a Benedictine college with an excellent academic program, that's our forte. The formation of this human person, these young men and women, that's critical, especially in today's society.
Well, obviously, you're doing literally the Lord's work. And I myself am a product of Jesuit education.
Yes,
But know the high place the Jesuits hold the Benedictines in. And the role you set for all Catholics around the world. So,
well, St. Ignatius, your founder, was taught by the Benedictines.
Yes.
So we take a little bit of credit for his good work. The Jesuits do great work.
Yes, and you should.
Thank you. So the other very important influence on our campus is Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers, right?
Of course.
So he entrusted to us his legacy. And what he said about young people is that before they can learn about science and literacy and mathematics, they need to know that grown-ups listen to them, love them, and belong. And so for us to carry Fred Rogers' legacy forward is critically important for our students, and in fact, for everybody who comes across our campus doors.
Having the president of St. Vincent College on this show with the association to the great Pittsburgh Steelers, I know our audience will appreciate.
Well, and I'm privileged to now be in my 20th season as their chaplain. So, and being with them and being with the fans is an honor. So the Pittsburghers travel well with the team,
yes.
But Pittsburgh Steelers fans who live elsewhere are always present at every stadium. I was just in Indy last week.
Right.
Tons of terrible towels.
Right.
Right?
I saw the game.
That's right. So what happens is that there's something to believe in with the Steelers that I don't know if the other teams have, if I can say that. I don't want to go across
you can say that.
So, but there's something about the Steelers that people believe in.
No doubt.
And there's something with the Rooney family, the Steelers, and what we do that's so important. And so I'm so grateful to see Steelers fans throughout the world. And I hope they come and see us at training camp each year, because that's where it begins each year, where the team bonds, right there.
No question. I'll tell you a little story we're going to now, but I actually want to tell you this little story. I recently interviewed, he's in there actually in the ballroom at the party, my good friend, County Executive Rich Fitzgerald.
Good man.
Good man.
Great guy.
And we've been friends, really. I was one of his first supporters almost 12 years ago now. He's coming to his last year in his term, finally. And I had made the statement, and I had said, Rich, you have to explain to me, because I always hear, and it's all, God knows it's true, how Steeler fans, they always say they travel so well. And every stadium, no matter where they play on the road, is half filled with Steeler fans.
Absolutely.
Which is true. But I said, how can they afford it? I mean, I have a little bit of money, and I couldn't afford to follow my team's the Raiders. How do people do it? He said, Chuck, so this is what people don't know. He said, when Steel went down in the 70s, we lost a significant percentage of our population in Pittsburgh and southwestern Pennsylvania, all diehard Steeler fans. So they had to leave to feed their families to get jobs elsewhere. But they never stopped loving their Pittsburgh Steelers. So they migrated to Indianapolis, and they went to Miami, and they went out to the West Coast to California, and they went to Denver, and they went to Chicago. So they filled up all these places, and they're still diehard Steeler fans. So when they play in that city, the Steelers, all of those folks come out to support their Steeler team, because their heart is not in San Francisco, it's in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. And what happens in those stadiums, sometimes the Steelers only get there every 2 years, every 6 years, every. So these fans plan for that day when they come back, and they make a big deal of it. So the tailgates in the parking lots before the game are a lot of Steelers.
No doubt.
Steelers fans are great.
Well, Godspeed, Father.
God bless you. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for inviting me to be part of this and with you. Thank you.
My pleasure, Father.
God
Thanks.
bless you.
Merry
Thanks.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you. Happy Advent.
Thanks. Well, I'm very pleased. As my audience knows, most of my guests have some affiliation with government, politics, elected officials, government leaders, community leaders, industry leaders. And every once in a while, I have the pleasure of talking to friends that have had a role in my life and impact. My audience has heard me blather for 10 years of this show, the Volpe Report, that once a long time ago, it's a horse age, not a dog's age ago, I ran for governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Well, I'm starting to think maybe my audience thinks I made that up. So we finally have living witnesses to that event, because it was in that period of time that was the reason that these two young people, pretty people, met. And so I'll introduce them. First, to my immediate right is Jim Rooney, and to his right is his lovely wife, Stephanie Rooney, maiden name Blakesley. And I know that because Stephanie came to work for our insurance company over 30 years ago, believe it or not. And when I was intrepid enough to decide as a young man, very young man, I still wonder about that, I think I was 31 or 32 when I announced, to run for governor of Pennsylvania, she was one of the few people I asked to make the transition to my campaign team and leave the insurance company, which she did. She became one of the executive assistants in my campaign out in my Pittsburgh office. And I was having this party, as you now have heard me say many times, 30 years of this party. Well, it was 30 years ago at one of these parties, when it was at the Waldorf Astoria, that they met, which started their romance. And now 28 years of marriage later, here they are. 30 years and 2 years of courtship, so it was 30 years. But I like to say, first of all, thank you for coming in, reacquainting. It's been a while since I've seen the both of you. And for my audience's benefit, since I've had the president of St. Vincent's College on here talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, you may have, I hope I didn't rush through his name. When I say Jim Rooney, that is the Steelers Rooneys. The Rooney family is Jim. And I've been blessed with his support and his friendship for over 30 years, even when I was running for governor. So first, let me talk to Stephanie, if you would give her the mic.
There we go.
Stephanie, first of all, so good to see you.
Good to see you.
You look as lovely as you did 30 years ago.
Thank you.
Well, at any rate, tell people that Ashley did run for governor. You were part of that
yes,
campaign.
I was part of the organization. And Chuck, I can't thank you enough for the support you gave me as a young... Oh, okay, yeah. As a young, as a woman coming out of college, you supported me as a woman coming in through your organization, and you were always supportive of us, and you're the reason that we are together today. We met at this event 30 years ago, and it's always just such a pleasure to come back and see you again.
Well, it's wonderful to see you. Jim?
Chuck?
We won't talk politics. We'll have to talk a little bit about football. You are the Rooney Steelers, so we have to talk football.
Politics might be easier these days.
Touche, no question. Well, both of our teams, now I say both of our teams because I think my audience has heard enough that I am a Raider fan. People say, from Pennsylvania, how'd you become a Raider fan? And I say, well, I'm a really old guy. And when I grew up as a young boy in the 1960s, you know, the AFL had just gotten a big contract from NBC.
Right.
Lamar Hunt had carried them for all those years, and he needed a little help, and they really saved the league. So every Sunday, I watched the Oakland Raiders on the NBC network, along with the other AFL teams. That's how I became a Raider fan. My dad was a Raider fan. But we have managed, through our close friendship and great respect, to keep that intact, despite the fact that you're a Steelers owner of your family owning the team, and I'm a Raiders fan. You've invited me up to the Rooney's box for games. But this is a year, as 2022 draws to a close, where both of our teams have had kind of a rough go of it. But I have to tell you a quick story. I was actually with an earlier guest talking about this. I'll never forget the worst Christmas of my life. Saturday, December 23rd, 1972. The worst Christmas of my life. My dad, as I said, big Raider fan. I was a 12-year-old boy. We were just, my dad had brought the tree in to start decorating it later on. We watched that game, and I was literally jumping up and down like when Jack Tatum knocked the ball. The TV screens weren't big enough in those days to see Franco Harris pick it out of the air. And of course, it ruined my Christmas. My dad had written a check for a Christmas and for a pool that following summer, and he was betting on that game. Big Raider fan, thought they were going to win it. That was the first Steeler playoff game in like 40 years or something. So at any rate, I had to tell you that story.
I'm sorry that your father lost that bet. Your father and you have been such great citizens of this community.
Thank you.
I wish you would have been governor. We had a great time supporting you, and one beautiful thing came out of the campaign, if nothing else.
I lost. So, in fact, I'm going to say right now, the best thing that came out of the campaign was you two.
Well, you should have been governor, but we're so grateful, Chuck. You're just such a good friend and such a good part of the community. Now, I want to tell your audience.
Please.
I did invite Chuck to come to Pittsburgh this Christmas when we celebrate the 50th anniversary of his horrible Christmas. So I love Chuck, but I don't mind ruining his Christmas one more time this year.
And I fully expect the Raiders will oblige you the way things are going. Well, at any rate, it was so good to see the both of you. And I look forward to having a cocktail with you shortly and listen to some Christmas music. Yeah. So, Stephanie, great to see you. And Jim, so good to see you.
Chuck, thank you. We love you, man.
Thank you
we
so
love
much.
Everything you do.
And I love them
Thank
back
you.
in full measure. Again, Stephanie and Jim Rooney. Congressman, thanks for stopping by our Christmas party Volpe Report.
Chuck, absolutely always a pleasure. Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you, Dan. First of all, I know I've told our audience how many times you've been on our show, and now that you're in the majority officially in the United States House of Representatives, and you're going to be chairing key committees, you're going to be on a lot more even. But this is a time of holiday season to kind of reflect. I know you're gratified at the 70% plurality in your recent run for re-election. Many of your Republican colleagues did not fare so well in Pennsylvania, some close fought races, but the Republicans took the House anyway. So first of all, I'd like to kind of get your take on what you expect going forward, because there's been so much written. And let me start with that, Leader McCarthy, who is the odds-on prohibitive favorite to be the Speaker, is that going to be the case, or there's still going to be a challenge, or do you think he'll just get it?
Well, first off, I really appreciate being with you.
Wow.
Secondly, you're right. I mean, it's a wonderful time of year as we're heading into Christmas, but we do have very, very, very serious issues facing our country. But no question, gaining the majority in the United States House of Representatives is a big step in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. And I'll tell you, I'm an objective guy. I am not about ideology. I'm not about what's politically the right way to go. I'm about what's best for the vast majority of Pennsylvanians and Americans. And as far as I'm concerned, what's good for Pennsylvania is good for our country. Related to your question on Leader McCarthy, we certainly think he will be our Speaker. There's a few members, each of which is friends of mine, that have protested against him. But I think Kevin is dealing with that. And you know what? I think it's going to make us better. I think having individual voices in our House, conservative voices, all voices, is going to make us a better party, better leadership, and better policy.
I think the country also has a right and wants answers on some things. The Democrats, they had their committees that had their agenda items, but the American people has fair questions. They want to have confidence that their elections are fair and free and accurate. They want to hold people to account. Anthony Fauci comes to mind. I read a wonderful article recently in the National Review. The headline in the article was "Impeach Mayorkas" for the debacle at our southern border. Yeah. And you were actually on the border caucus of the United States Congress. So talk about if you envision a role for yourself in that.
Well, Chuck, you really outlined things in a manner that most people look at and say, these are the problems, these are the things I care about my country, about my state, and all of which are going to be addressed. So what we're going to be looking at is some policy that is in the interest of the vast majority of Americans, right, to strengthen America. Number one, from a national security standpoint, border, economy, because they're not doing it. And, we lost a lot in this past election, the younger voters. We need the younger voters to see that we are about common sense. And I don't mean just Republicans, Democrats can be part of this too. Now, on some of your other questions, you brought up the border. I mean, there is no more of a crisis than what's happening at our border. We've got drugs, we've got human trafficking. We need answers. And Secretary Mayorkas comes into one of my committees and tells me that the border is secure. Right, you're shaking your head. Americans are shaking their head. That's an unacceptable situation, answer, no solution plan, and we will, in our majority, do everything we possibly can to put us on a far better course.
Well said, Dan. Speaking from my perspective, the voters in northeastern and central Pennsylvania and the citizens of northeast and central Pennsylvania are well served by your leadership They've already seen it as a Secretary of Revenue of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, but now your jurisdiction goes around the world, literally. And your leadership and your commitment to do the right thing, I know will produce results that you talk about, and you'll always have the support of this guy.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
You're a great friend. Thank you, and you're so important to our community.
Thank you, Dan.
You really,
I'm honored.
You're unbelievable.
From you, honored.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll still address you as Governor Qualley.
Always
Good
a pleasure
to
to see you,
Pleasure.
Chuck.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Jim. Thank you for stopping by. Of course, former Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, Jim Qualley. And as we were reminiscing before the cameras were rolling, we were talking about you were a guest on my first year on the Volpe Report.
Yes, I remember it well.
You and Governor Tom Corbett as well. And you were talking about what was at stake in the future of Pennsylvania. And I've got to tell you, I had a short time after that, soon-to-be Governor Tom Wolf on the show as well.
Yes.
And I have spent the last 8 years, I have run out of pejorative, negative things to say about that man. He started his term by not signing a budget, which he then did 3 successive years after that.
I remember that.
All I'm going to say is, like, where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? A state turns its lonely eyes to you.
Chuck, what I would say to you is this, exactly what I would have said to you in your first season. I think Pennsylvanians are starving for common sense. I think they're starving for people who are willing to cross the party aisle. And you and I grew up in the same times. What we were looking for was consensus, was the ability to be able to move the agenda forward. Now we're suffering from moving from win after win after win without actually governing. And that's the challenge, I think, for all of us today. We've got to try to find the middle because, look, I don't know about you, but I don't agree even with myself 100% of the time. So if I'm expecting to agree with the person who I'm sending to either the state house or the state senate or to the United States Congress and agree with them 100% of the time, I'm going to be vastly disappointed.
Of course.
So I think what we have to understand is that we don't know everything, and we have to rely on those who we send to the House, the Senate, the U.S. Congress, the United States Senate, to be able to use their judgment as well and step back and allow that all to take place, because otherwise this system of representative democracy is not going to work.
Of course not. Well, let me say this, a couple things. One is, I had very briefly heard your name going back about a year and a half or so in the conversation of potential gubernatorial candidates in this past year's election. And I was very hopeful that that was going to be the case. I'm almost like, I have to say, I kind of foresaw what was happening. And I believe the Republican Party missed a historic opportunity to send a United States Senator to the United States Senate and make it a Republican majority. And we botched it. And I say we now as a Republican, because I am one. And an even bigger one, do you know that, like, how far you have to botch it after 8 years of Democrat, not just any Democrat, Tom Wolf, to my mind, one of the worst governors in the history of Pennsylvania. How you can, and I was saying, but I saw the clouds starting to, this 12-way race, important political leaders supporting individual different candidates. They were all on a different horse. And I saw, you know, the potential danger of a Doug Mastriano candidacy, unelectable. I've said in a view, right of Attila the Hun. Not, so, but having said that, you know, we had so many quality candidates. You, I believe, would have been at the top of that list, and maybe you, as a former lieutenant governor, could have united it. So I guess one thing I want to say is, I hope you will play a role, because Pennsylvania has a chance 2 years from now to get involved again. And right now, I have to say the Republican Party is in disarray so we picked the two candidates that could lose both of those races. We had opportunities to pick Lou Barletta, probably a winner. Bill McSwain, probably a winner. Even Dave White, the businessman, a very good candidate. We had a chance to elect Dave McCormick, who's a friend of mine, who I supported. Is there any doubt? Look, Oz almost did it, was within 1 or 2 points. McCormick wins to me by 3 or 4, and it was only a lack of structure and organizing principle in Pennsylvania's Republican Party that allowed that catastrophe to happen. So just your thoughts.
So my thoughts are these. In the primary, I was for Lou Barletta,
right?
Quite aggressively, actually, and I was also for Dave McCormick.
You think alike?
When Lou and Dave weren't successful, I immediately drafted in behind our successful candidates.
Well, at any rate, Governor Call.
Chuck.
Pleasure.
What a pleasure.
And I look forward to staying in touch with you and hopefully your continued leadership role in our party, because the Republican Party needs it.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
to you
Christmas
and your
to
family.
you and a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Former Lieutenant Governor Jim Cawley. We're here now with 2 of my closest friends, dearest friends in the world. To my immediate right, Attorney Frank Ruggiero. To my further right, Mike Doyle. I should tell a little bit about what they both do in relation to me now. Frank is the general legal counsel for our insurance company. You've already met earlier in the show our president of the board, Ed Cristiano. Frank is our general counsel. We've been in a lot of legal scrapes, Frank, you and I. I'm, of course, a former trial lawyer and still a lawyer myself. But I'm proud to say I think we're 8-0, isn't it?
We are, Chuck. Yeah. We've had a number of battles together. You know, it's our pleasure, it's my pleasure, it's my family's pleasure to be a part of it, a part of such a successful company, and a part of a good company, and a company that does great things and great work and benefits our community in so many ways that people really don't even know about, and you do quietly, and your company does quietly, and I'm just so proud to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thanks. Now I have to ask you, as I made reference earlier, Mike will get to his great race for United States Congress in a second. You are considering, and look, it's clearly on the lips of politicians and lawyers in Lackawanna County that you might be considering throwing your hat into the political ring. And I will quickly add, I hope you fare better than the both of us did.
well, look, you know, sometimes, you know how elections are, right? We're giving it strong consideration. I've had a number of
office as judge here.
It is for the Court of Common Pleas of Lackawanna County. I've had a number of people approach me, good people. I've had a lot of great discussions. I think we're at a good time in our lives. My wife, myself, we have 2 young boys, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, Ryan and Reese. And you know, after being a lawyer for 25 years, I think I'm well positioned to take a seat on the bench, which is already an exemplary bench. We have a wonderful bunch of jurists, and I'd like to, you know, perhaps if I'd make that decision, just continue that legacy and help what's already, as I said, a great bench and a great bunch of legal minds.
Now, Mike, of course, as Frank alluded to, is in charge of my Western Pennsylvania operation. He's our Western branch manager. Mike has been with me for this is the 32nd year of our relationship, believe it or not. And you met a guest earlier in this show, Stephanie Rooney. Back then it was Stephanie Blakesley. She left my company, the insurance operation, to go on my campaign for governor. Mike, likewise, left my insurance company all those years ago, almost 30 years ago, and became my chief of staff when I ran for governor. And since that time, I have entrusted the whole Western Pennsylvania part of the operation to his executive leadership. He's done well. That's why I can keep having these parties. He's one of the main contributors.
Thanks, Mike.
But beyond that, Mike recently was the Republican nominee for United States Congress in Western Pennsylvania to fill a seat that was given no chance because it was an 18-point Democratic plurality the way they had drawn the district. So, Mike, talk a little bit about your campaign and you know, your thoughts now and what. By the way, he was given a leave of absence to run for office, and we're welcoming him back to our company.
Yeah.
All yours, Mike.
Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate it. Yeah, back when the Supreme Court dropped the new lines for this new district, my phone started ringing off the hooks, and I was asked, Mike, we need you to run. And of course, my initial reaction was to laugh. Like, there's just no way, it's a Democrat seat. Well, once I sat down and looked at the actual lines, 20% of Westmoreland County is now in the district, and it went from a D plus 18 to a D plus 8. And I started looking around. Then I looked at my opponent, and I really thought that this was an opportunity to flip a seat. And thanks to you, the leave of absence was huge. I could not have done it without you, Chuck, and obviously Frank too. Two huge supporters of my campaign. But we worked really hard. We gained a lot of friends. In the Mon Valley, which is a huge Democrat area, I won it.
You did. You ran a great race.
I was really proud, very proud of the fact that I was endorsed by all 3 FOPs in the district and the statewide Pennsylvania State Police.
Wow.
Very, very proud of that. 9,000 active and retired members, unanimous, supported me. So I was very, very proud of that. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, the city of Pittsburgh was just too big of a nut to crack.
Right.
And but listen, I have absolutely no regrets. I woke up the next day and I said, look, there's nothing else we could have done. And back to reality. And I actually said to you, Chuck, on election night, I was like, Chuck, I tried. I'm sorry, but you're stuck with me now.
With pleasure. Look, the company stuck with me too. And after I lost for governor, things worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, I wish both of you the best of luck in this holiday season and New Year. You have an election, I think, maybe coming up.
Yeah.
You just left one, and a lot of things to be grateful for.
Yep.
Especially having our families here at this Christmas time in New York. So
absolutely.
Enjoy the party, and I'll be joining you shortly. Now I'm going to give the mic to each of my lovely granddaughters, and we're going to start from the youngest. Now, she was really a little tight the last time we had this show, and this is Cordelia. Tell them what grade you're in and how you like school.
Second, and I like gym.
There you go. Physical ed was always my best subject too, for the record. And Miss Guinevere. Now, Guinevere actually had the audacity to ask me to speak to her 4th grade class last year. And this is a true story. As a candidate for governor and other offices, I've given 10,000 speeches. I also was honored to give the commencement address at my law school graduation. And all of those speeches together are not as difficult than giving a speech to a 4th grade class. So for all of you teachers out there, you have my deepest appreciation. But talk about your grade in your school and what you're doing and what your best subject is.
I'm 10. I'm in 5th grade. My best subject is probably ELA. I've got great teachers in each subject, though.
It's great to hear, Guinevere. And you just got a great new Lululemon jacket that I see you have already taken off.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to that. And now my oldest granddaughter, who's about to turn 12 in 6th grade, this is Scarlett. By the way, I have to say, I'm kind of proud. My granddaughters' names are all kind of unique and interesting. We have a Scarlett, we have a Guinevere, and we have a Cordelia. Scarlett, who's dressed in scarlet.
Hi.
In what grade?
I'm in 6th grade.
And what's your favorite subject?
I don't know. I'm tired. Please.
Okay, well, at any rate, I wanted them, because I know their classmates are going to be tuning in, to get to say a few words. At any rate, on behalf of all of our families and my family, I am thrilled to be able to bring this Christmas show to you, and hopefully you've picked up some things and seen that it's a lot of fun. And I say my wife for last, who won't take the mic, but really, all of what you see behind me would not have been possible without her. And all of the things I do and the things I have to do, not to mention a candidacy for governor. We were married in my first year of law school, actually before that, and my daughter over there was born in the spring, 2nd semester of my first year of law school. Needless to say, I would have had a difficult time making it through any of that without my wife, Ellen, to my left, who is dressed in a lovely pink outfit tonight to match her lipstick. But thank you at any rate for joining us for this Christmas, and from our family to yours, may you have a wonderful Merry Christmas and a happy and blessed New Year.